The movie begins at Oxford University, where Professor Thomas Bradley is walking with his daughter, Serena. Suddenly, one of his students came up to him, asking if he was into any extracurricular stuff during the break. He didn't get that she was flirting, so he just politely said no. Thomas and Serena then headed to a meeting with the university board. Thomas was hoping to score an extension for what he figured would be his biggest academic breakthrough ever. Even though folks had doubts about his research on ancient Greek love spells, they still gave him the summer to wrap it up. Walking out of the building, one of the directors, Professor Coulter, offered Thomas his place in Spetses, Greece, so he could keep working. Serena really wanted to go, and Thomas eventually said yes. Later, Serena saw some students jumping off a bridge, and Thomas explained it was just an Oxford thing. Next thing you know, some students grabbed him, wanting him to jump too. Scared, Serena yelled that her dad couldn't swim. Soon after, Thomas and Serena took off for the little Greek town of Spetses. On the boat, the captain, Mavros, warned a seasick Thomas not to puke in his fish bucket. Thomas couldn't hold it in and threw up, which made Mavros furious. He tossed Thomas into the water. Serena freaked out, knowing her dad couldn't swim, and started yelling at Mavros to save him. She didn't even notice her bracelet slipping into the water. The bracelet's shine caught a mermaid's eye, and she helped Thomas get to the surface. They landed in Spetses shortly after. Mavros tried to charge them $100 for the ride, but then changed his mind and didn't ask for a dime when Klimi, an old lady from the island, showed up. She gave Mavros an earful for trying to rip off his visitors and told Thomas that Coulter had sent her to greet them. They soon went to Coulter's house, which was in decent shape. Klimi offered them some dusty food. Thomas and Serena didn't want to be rude, so they took some, but then just dumped it outside when she wasn't looking. They spent the rest of the day scrubbing the house clean, leaving it sparkling. Later, Serena asked Thomas about Professor Coulter's daughter, but even he didn't know much about her. Just then, Serena found an old Greek book with an eye symbol on the cover. After this, Thomas got back to his studies, while Serena fixed a bike she found. She later rode it near a cove, but before she could get close, Klimi popped up and warned her to stay away. She said it was where the professor's daughter disappeared. Klimi also told her to be careful what you wish for if she ever went there. Somewhere else, Dmitri, Mavros' son, asked his dad when his mom was coming back from vacation. Mavros just said soon, but Dmitri snapped back that it had already been 4 years. Meanwhile, Serena got home and started reading the old book she found. Tucked between its pages, she found ancient myths about mermaids. The next day, Serena planned to check in on Klimi, but Dmitri approached her for a chat. He told her Klimi was usually busy and that she was also the town's matchmaker. Dmitri then asked Serena to hang out, but she shot down all his offers. She later talked to Klimi, asking what she thought of her dad. The matchmaker simply said Thomas was a good guy, then went to chop a chicken's head off for dinner. The next morning, Serena asked Thomas when the best time to meet a god would be. He told her it was at noon when the sun was highest and there were no shadows, but he warned her not to, saying it was dangerous. Serena then wondered if an offering would chill out the gods, and Thomas told her it might work. With that in mind, Serena headed to a local antique shop where she found a necklace with an eye symbol pendant. Surprisingly, the shop owner knew her right away because news travels fast in their tiny town. Serena bought the necklace and headed straight for the cove, determined to figure out what was lurking in that mysterious spot. Meanwhile, Klimi met up with Thomas. She asked about his wife, and he told her she'd passed away. He added that they'd been apart for a long time, and only Serena was close to her. Klimi gave her condolences, then invited him and Serena to a town party. As she said this, Klimi was carelessly holding an old scroll, making Thomas yell at her to put it down. Somewhere else, Serena tossed the necklace into the cove while saying the words from the old book's cover. What she didn't know was that Klimi was watching her from a cliff. Serena then dove into the water, where she found the bracelet she'd lost, sitting on a broken mosaic with that same eye symbol. That afternoon, Serena got home and caught her dad practicing some dance moves. Embarrassed, he explained they were invited to a party, which got Serena all excited. She then gave her dad a full makeover, dressing him in a fancy suit. Later, they showed up at the party, which turned out to be a wedding reception. Thomas was not thrilled about wearing a suit and felt even more awkward when the bride's bouquet landed right on him. That night, the party was in full swing, and Dmitri, acting like a grown-up, asked Thomas if he could dance with his daughter. Thomas, confused, agreed, making his daughter go dance with the guy. As they walked away, Klimi told her 2 nieces to keep Thomas entertained. Meanwhile, Mavros was out on the ocean, in charge of the fireworks, but he accidentally aimed one of them at the party, hitting the bride's dress directly. With total chaos at the party, Thomas left with Serena. As they walked back home, they didn't even notice a mermaid swimming close to the beach. Once they got home, Serena told her dad she really needed to experience love, to which he replied that even the ancient Greeks considered it a disease. Serena then said how much fun the party was and asked Thomas if they could do it again, but he wasn't paying attention anymore. totally lost in his research. Disappointed, Serena went to bed. Later, Thomas checked on her before going to sleep. He found his late wife's bracelet on the nightstand. The next morning, Serena asked Thomas about his research progress. Serena worried he'd never crack it in time and end up separated from him, living with her grandparents in Connecticut. However, Thomas calmed her down, explaining he was only stressed because he was trying to figure out love spells and had never actually been in love before. Serena then asked what he felt for her mom, and he replied that he admired her a lot but was also kind of scared of her. Later, Serena went to the cove where she saw a mermaid's tail popping up from the water. She quickly dove in to follow her and soon found herself face to face with Nereid, the mermaid. Nereid gave her a conch shell that allowed her to breathe underwater. While Serena was swimming with the mermaid, Thomas felt swamped by all the pressure and ended up just drinking himself silly. Soon after, the mermaid started speaking ancient Greek, making Serena think she and her dad would hit it off. However, she knew she couldn't tell anyone about Nereid's existence because it was a condition of her wish. Meanwhile, a drunk Thomas called the board to ask for an extension. When they told him no, he just flat out quit. Thomas had no clue, but Serena heard the whole conversation and it really messed her up. The next day, Serena called Nereid, holding a piece of fish, which made the mermaid crack up, seeing Serena as sort of a pet. As they chatted, Dimitri watched them from a cliff. He immediately told his dad he saw a gorgon. Mavros reminded his son that catching the creature would make them a fortune, so he ordered Dimitri to dig up whatever the Bradleys knew. Later, Serena got home and bumped into Dimitri, who was rushing out. As she walked in, Thomas told her Dimitri had mentioned she was swimming alone in the cove, which had him worried. Serena replied that she was with an adult and wanted him to meet her. She added that the woman was also a classicist who could speak ancient Greek and would be like meeting a colleague. Thomas, though, still refused, and Serena hinted he was acting like a chicken. That got to him, and he left the room. The next day, Thomas went to the cove, hoping to meet Serena's adult friend. But when he saw Nereid's tail, he totally freaked, which made her accidentally knock him out with her tail. Later, Serena woke Thomas up and asked what happened. Still sleepy, he replied that he saw a goddess with a tail. Serena told him it was probably just the light playing tricks. She then taught him to swim while Thomas floated with his eyes closed, softly singing. Nereid appeared and asked Serena who the guy was. Serena said it was her dad, and Nereid just casually remarked that he was a terrible singer and left. That same day, Serena begged Nereid to meet Thomas. She promised him that he'd truly admire her. Nereid finally said okay. That afternoon, Nereid transformed and grew a pair of legs to head to Serena's house. When Thomas saw her, he was scared stiff and blurted out a curse word. Nereid, offended, left immediately. The next day, Dimitri visited Serena and told her that Thomas had invited him over for dinner and to hang out. That night, while having dinner outside, Mavros snuck into Thomas's study, searching for anything that could lead him to Nereid. Klimi almost busted him, but Mavros managed to hide, though he ended up with a bunch of injuries, like getting his hand stuck in a microscope and getting clocked by a falling statue. Later, Klimi served everyone a sheep's head, which wasn't looking too appetizing. Serena took the opportunity to ask Thomas about the Greek woman, and he told her the story of Ino, who became a sea nymph to save Odysseus from drowning. He also mentioned that immortals can die if they try to become mortal using elixirs or potions, especially if their intentions aren't pure. While Thomas was talking, Dimitri nodded off from boredom, and Mavros, who was spying on them from a tree, also drifted off and fell to the ground. He pretended he'd just come to pick up Dimitri, and before leaving, he took a big bite of the crap. The next day, Nereid took Serena to her cave, where she kept all her random stuff and treasures. Serena, worn out from swimming, almost drank from Nereid's well, but Nereid stopped her just in time. Serena then asked Nereid to help Thomas translate ancient Greek, arguing that if he didn't finish his book, she'd get sent away to live with her grandparents in Connecticut. Even though Thomas annoyed Nereid, she decided to go along with Serena's wish and accepted the situation. As the two headed back to the cove, Mavros watched them from the cliff. That night, Serena brought Nereid home. When Thomas saw them, Serena panicked and introduced Nereid as her friend Frankie. She then pulled her dad outside, but Thomas immediately started talking about seeing Nereid in the cove. Serena explained that Frankie would help him with his book, but Thomas doubted she could actually be helpful. However, Serena insisted he be polite because she was their guest. Later that night, they went to dinner at a local restaurant. There, Thomas was stunned when Nereid quoted an ancient Greek lyric poet in ancient Greek. Right at that moment, Mavros showed up, dressed as a waiter. He suspiciously patted Nereid's legs, looking for any jewels, which freaked her out. Thomas pushed Mavros, and the flaming dish he was holding ended up on a woman's cast, who turned out to be the bride from the party earlier. Before they split up, Thomas complimented Nereid on her amazing language skills, and their relationship definitely improved. He also told her she could visit him anytime. True to his word, Nereid visited him later that night and asked about his work. Thomas replied that he wrote about poetry, specifically love spells. He then showed her an ancient text they read together. However, they ended up falling victim to the love spell's power and couldn't help but feel drawn to each other. Serena noticed this and told Nerid to go home. Despite that, Nerid snuck into Thomas's room at dawn while he was asleep. Before she could tell him how she felt, her scales started showing because the sun was about to come up. Knowing mermaids could only have legs at night, Nerid was forced to leave. The next day, Serena confronted Nerid, who was still smitten. She revealed that she was under a love spell, which bummed Nerid out. Still, the spell made her lovingly imagine Thomas in the water, making Serena worried the spell wouldn't go away. While heading home, Thomas asked Serena where Nerid lived, hoping to break the spell. He told her he was under a love spell and that Nerid was actually a mermaid. However, Thomas was still interested, claiming it was the first time he'd ever felt a real connection with someone. Because of this, Serena spilled that Nerid was in the cove. Thomas immediately went there and dove into the water. From a distance, Nerid watched Thomas, who soon left. Meanwhile, Serena wrote a letter to Professor Coulter asking for more time to finish her dad's research. She also thanked him for letting them stay at his house and assured him that his daughter was doing great wherever she was. Back in Oxford, 2 of the 3 directors decided to give Thomas more time. The next day, Mavros went after Serena, looking for info about Nerid. He chased her through the streets in his truck but lost control and crashed it, which Serena used to make her escape. Meanwhile, Thomas found a text in Serena's old book and realized it was the missing piece he needed to finish his work. He also figured out that the love spell was just a spark that could lead to genuine love. That afternoon, Serena headed to Nerid's cave, not knowing Mavros was spying on her. In the cave, Nerid told her the spell had worn off, but now she was truly in love with Thomas. However, she knew they were just too different to be together. Serena confronted her, making her wonder if she was willing to let him go and stay in the cave forever. Nerid then realized she had a choice: drink from the well of life to become mortal. Trusting that her intentions were pure, she drank from the well and passed out. When she woke up, she found she had legs, which made Serena jump for joy. Meanwhile, Mavros waited outside the cave in a boat with Dimitri. Dimitri insisted that Nerid was a good person, but Mavros was already dead set on his plan. He tossed a bomb into the cave, making it collapse. While Serena and Nerid tried to get out, Thomas, realizing his daughter was gone, headed to the cove. Seeing Mavros's boat by the cave, he decided to go there even though he couldn't swim. Serena and Nerid ran into Mavros, who almost shot Nerid with a harpoon, but Dimitri stopped him. Still, Mavros locked Dimitri in a room and tried to kill Nerid. Just then, Thomas showed up and knocked him out cold with a hit to the head. He then helped the women onto the boat. Meanwhile, Dimitri broke free from the room and accidentally shoved Mavros into the water. Days later, Thomas went back to Oxford and presented his research to the academics. As the grumpy director read one of the spells, he accidentally fell in love with Professor Coulter. Thomas got awesome feedback for his work, and everyone gave him a big round of applause when he finished his presentation. Leaving the building, Nerid and Serena were happily waiting for him by the car. Before going home, Thomas stopped at the bridge to keep an Oxford tradition alive. From then on, Serena, Thomas, and Nerid decided to go back to Spetses every summer, living happily ever after. I hope you liked this story. Please let us know in the comments if you want to see more movie explanations like this. Your suggestions motivate us to keep making more videos. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.